I'm back. I'm back out of the old internet jail. Came down to the river. I'm running out of light, but I came down. It's been freezing at nighttime. And I came down to check the river behind me, see if that rock is exposed yet. I thought it would have been, but there's a real pretty big lake feeding this river right here, so I don't know if I can be able to wade across this sucker tomorrow or not. I might try. I tried the other day, it was kind of spooky. Had to turn around. But anyway, quick note, there is a convoy of over 500,000 people on the way to the capital of Canada as I speak today. I watched a video on it today, and I'll be lying if I said I didn't get choked up. I've been calling out Canadians for the past I don't know how many months, claiming that I live in a... I even said I was getting so frustrated saying out loud on Instagram that I basically am living in a country full of pussies. And nobody's doing anything, and I've been screaming, do something, everybody do something, band together, do something. The most genius thing I've ever seen in my life. It makes me so proud. It's going down right now, along with the US truckers as well, doing the same thing. And they're basically going to shut down the country. And they're on the way to shut down Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing. It doesn't get any better than that for me to watch all those men and women decide they've had enough, and they're going, and their words were, Trudeau, look out, we're coming for you. You can imagine, you guys who have listened to me long enough, you can imagine my reaction to that. There's American truck drivers, truckers are supporting. The people are standing up, man. The people are taking it back. It's so beautiful. Those little bastards that seem to think they are the authority over us are just about to they're about to get their asses handed to them on the 29th of January. I couldn't be more excited. But anyway, I have to send out a huge thank you to everybody who was concerned about where I'd gone. They weren't getting informed of what had happened or where I went. Got gazillions of people messaging me, Dave, everybody, saying people were wondering what the hell happened to me. I tried to get out word that I put all the audio on the podcast, which I will continue to do every day in case it happens again. It'll happen again, let's face it. Because my days are numbered. I can't keep my mouth shut. Nobody can push me around. Nobody can tell me what to do. Nobody can control my ass. It's not going to happen. I don't care if I had 10 million subscribers. I'm not going to do what they tell me to. I'll sidestep a little bit, as much as I have to stay in touch with all of you until we figure out the answer, and I'm pretty well I've come to the answer of the route I'm going to go. Just a couple more emails with my techies tonight, and I should have a firm answer to you guys tomorrow and let you know exactly what's going to happen. Dave Pilatus may do the same alongside, possibly. I don't know, we're going to talk a little more about that, but either way, nobody's going to control us. Nobody's going to stop the voice of the people. It's not going to happen. But anyway, I got one hell of a share I'm going to share with all you guys. I haven't read the whole thing, but from what I did read of it, it's one of those, what am I reading? And I wasn't there, you weren't there. I will never know if this really happened or if it didn't happen. But I'll tell you what, from what the shit that we do know that is happening on the face of the planet today, I wouldn't doubt it for a second that this is authentic. But once again, if I get to read it, you get to hear it. And it's up to you to take from it what you will or you leave it. Right? That's the beautiful thing about this. You got the choice. I'm the messenger. And this messenger shoots back. I'm gonna have to position myself a little differently because it's getting dark, but whatever, who cares? Who cares about my mug? Listen to this. Alright, sad thing, unfortunate thing, I was looking at my emails the other day and I actually went into the spam folders of 3 different email addresses and they were chock full of emails from all of you. I was just like, oh my god, no way. I spent probably 2 hours copying and pasting emails from my spam boxes into my notes. And I think the spam possibly gets emptied every 30 days or something, so who knows how many I may have possibly missed. I don't know if I did, but it's kind of took me back a little bit there for a minute. It's like, oh shit, no, really? But anyways, let me mark this as read. This came out of my spam box to boot. And listen to this. Hey Steve, I was scared off about the government calling me on the stories. We are told that we can be prosecuted for talking about what we have seen. They would have to admit that they know as well. So I'm not too worried. There's not my computer or my real email, so here it goes. I'm retired from the military after 20 plus years as special operations for the U.S. military. Today I serve as the pastor of one of our town's churches for the past 10 years. Part 1. During my second of 3 tours to Afghanistan, the God-forsaken part of the world where everything is trying to kill you, myself, nicknamed, but you can call me Jake, not my real name, and my spotter, I won't use that name, were assigned to a task force monitoring how exactly the bad guys were getting into Afghanistan from Pakistan. We had been working together for over 15 years as a team. Gonzo was a part of Cherokee and I'm Iroquois, corn planter tribe. We had a connection which was evident from the moment we met. After working together for so long, we could almost hear what the other was thinking without speaking. We found ourselves on the side of a mountain, dug in for a long stay. You could have been standing 5 feet from us and you would never have known it. Our location / hide gave us 3,000 yards to the bend ahead of us in the valley. By the way, it was not more than a quarter mile from the Pakistan border. We had no backup and would have to hump about 12 clicks to the closest LZ. We had placed sensors all over the valley floor that would register if a dog farted. They were very sensitive. After about a week of looking at rocks and nature, it happened, about 3 a.m. Gonzo woke me up about 3 minutes before the sensor started going nuts. He was that good, he could feel what was about to happen. When he whispered to me that the shit is about to hit the fan, I was carrying a MacTac 338 as I thought the 50 BMG was a little overkill. Mounted on top is a very nice Night Force scope. I started scanning the valley floor with my scope as Gonzo jumped on the spotting scope. Not long after that, about 2,800 yards away, we spotted movement. Gonzo called in that we had platoon-sized movement and we were told to stay on mission, observe and report. Well, everything was going well until they got to within 1,000 yards. Gonzo noticed movement on our side of the valley but could not confirm if it was friendly forces. Radio contact confirmed we were all alone, with the closest unit of Rangers 9 clicks back down the valley, but up 2,000 feet, clearing a cave system. That is when the Taliban unit opened fire, not on us, but the movement we had seen on our side of the valley. I have seen some battles before, but this was a slaughter. From our side of the valley, about 12 to 15 extremely large wolves / dogs moved with ungodly speed and attacked the 35 to 40 Taliban soldiers in the center of the valley. Heavily armed, I figured they could hold their own, but quickly realized they were losing badly. I could not believe what I was seeing. Gonzo just kept repeating, holy shit, over and over. The battle was approaching 800 yards, but 400 yards below, I watched on thermal / IR and everything else we had, and it was sickening to watch. It was sickening to watch my enemy get killed like that, just ripped to pieces. Their guns were having some but little effect on these dog / wolf beings. 6 to 8 feet tall on 2 legs and 4 to 5 feet tall on all 4s. Now you're probably thinking what I've said so far was crazy, but that is when things got even stranger. From the far side of the valley, about 1,200 yards away, came a scream that made your hair stand on end and your blood freeze. And then a blue, shimmering light appeared at or near the base of the cliff, and 7 9-foot beings, about 10 total, started pouring out of a shimmer and attacked the dog / wolf creatures. The only way to tell the difference was eye color, red and yellow. The Sasquatches had yellow / green, yellow eyes, and the dog / wolf ones had red / orange eyes. The Sasquatches evened the fight quickly. When one of the Sasquatches in the fight, a big gray one, screamed and the blue / shimmering circle and out came 10 or so more real big ones. They were gray as well as taller and wider than the first group. The battle was over within minutes. Gonzo asked me what we should do, call it in, etc. I was still in shock a little bit, but something inside my head, a voice told me we should help. I had Gonzo range some targets and fired about 12 to 15 shots, with about 10 connecting with the dog / wolf creatures. Within 5 minutes from then, it was all over. The Sasquatches started dragging the dog / wolf bodies to the cliff where they came from.
The leader, 10 plus feet tall and light gray, screamed a scream that was different than the others. A blackish/grayish shimmering circle opened, and the bodies of the dead dog/wolf creatures were tossed into it, and they disappeared as they entered. After all the bodies were cleaned and disposed of, the Sasquatches gathered together. Some you could tell were hurt, but not all were walking except one who needed assistance. Another scream, and the Sasquatches entered the shimmering circle, all but one, the real big one, the gray leader. He, and I know it was a he, started walking towards our position. Gonzo calmly says, "Now what?" I chambered another round and told Gonzo to tell him if he gets to 200 yards. Right before he got to 200 yards, he stopped. Was he reading my mind? I saw what they did to the dog/wolf creatures. I was not going to die like that. Gonzo said, "Do you feel scared anymore?" I noticed that I didn't. Right then, 5 feet from the front of the hide, appears a very small female Sasquatch, just standing there. No words were spoken, but I heard "thank you" in my head. Then Gonzo and I woke up, just as the sun was coming up. Black Hawk and Cobra choppers were rolling into the valley, and there were 2 crystals laying on the rock in front of my gun. I picked them up and handed one to Gonzo, and he said to me, "They are for protection." I said, "How do you know?" He simply said, "He told me. She told me." That was enough for me. I've never been anywhere without it since. If you'd like to move. If you'd like to hear part 2 of the story that happened 3 years later, let me know, and I don't get tossed into jail. Gonzo and I were grilled by the military and several 3-letter groups, but Gonzo and I stuck to our story and never mentioned the dog/wolf creatures or the Sasquatches and everything that happened that day. Thank you for all you do. I'm retired now, and so was Gonzo, but we had another encounter where the crystals saved both our lives. Keep on keeping on, and don't let anyone stop you. Thanks again, Steve. I'll check this email weekly. Operation Firefly will blow your mind. It involves U.S. and Canadian military on the border of our countries. Master Sergeant Jake. All right, man. Hold on. Was that the right name of those ideas? Yeah. All right. That is one hell of a mouthful to share publicly with a whole pile of people, right? And I don't think I've ever heard anything quite like that before in my lifetime. But I don't think I've ever heard of any sightings of Sasquatch and the dog-man type of beings together either. But anyway, yeah, of course I want to hear more. You got more? Frickin' send it over. Send it and share it. Maybe I'll have to find your email and email me back or something, maybe, I don't know. But that is one hell of a frickin' story. Now, obviously, there's going to be a pile of people who are going to say, "Bullshit, what's this guy on?" But think about it. Afghanistan and Pakistan have historically had some crazy shit going on around those countries that we just would never even be able to comprehend, right? There's a lot of ancient history in those countries. There's a lot of spiritual things going on in those countries. Things that we don't know about, never seen, never heard about. Things that would probably freak us right out. That is one hell of a story. I could probably shotgun 50,000 frickin' questions at you pertaining to that incident with details. It'll be interesting to see for who watches it, how the comment section goes on below after hearing this share, right? But anyway, if you got more, sir, please email me back and share more. All right? Now remember, you guys take from it what you will or leave it. It's up to you. But that is a hell of a pile of that is one hell of a chunk of story to take in, isn't it? That's something else. Okay, I'm gonna try to get this one more out, and then I'm gonna get out of here. Titled Sasquatch in Central Alberta. Hi Steve, thanks for all your work and giving us a place to learn. YouTube should be paying you. If it weren't for you, David Polides and Scott Carpenter, there would be no reason to be here on YouTube. My name is David R. I've never seen a Sasquatch, but I've been around them for most of my life. I started following you before you came out with your Sasquatch fact to face. I've been putting off writing you for a long time, but the other day you read about the guy at Elk Island National Park, and I wonder if it was my Sasquatch you saw. I don't hunt, but I love to fly fish. I started watching because of your bear encounters. I've had a few, and I had a friend that got mauled by a grizzly bear in Golden, BC. So I'm always trying to be informed on how to stay out of bear trouble. I liked fishing lakes and rivers that were hard to get to and not often fished. I almost always have the water all to myself. Usually I would drive into the area 2 hours before sunup so I could hike in and be on the lake with my float tube before the sun came up. One morning I was putting on my neoprene waders. I had one leg in when a bear grunted at me, just to let me know he was there. Luckily I had to stop for a pee about 15 minutes earlier. I would have peed myself. I just froze for 1 second and a picture flashed of me trying to climb a tree with half my neoprenes hanging off me. I could tell the bear was only a few feet from me, but it was so dark I couldn't see him. Thought to myself it would take me longer to strip out of my waders than finish getting into them and get into the lake, and I was still alive. So I finished getting into my waders and waded into the lake and paddled out my belly boat. To this day, it was some of the clearest thinking in my life. I was scared but calm, if that makes any sense. Yeah, makes sense. Been there a few times. Anyway, I have a few Sasquatch encounters that were close. One time I was fishing at Lisbon Lake, not far from Kimberley, BC, where I lived at the time. It was about a 4-kilometer hike from the road. I always was asking people where the good lakes were, and this one was mentioned a few times, so I thought it sounded perfect. One guy told me not to go in there by myself, that he's always felt like he was being watched when he was there. And the other guy said people have seen a Sasquatch in there. So I took two friends I knew I could outrun with me. Hold on, I'm screwing up here. We had a great day fishing with no eerie feeling of being watched. So a couple of weeks later, I went back in alone. I fished the day with no problems. I was at the trailhead, getting things packed up for the hike out when things got very still and quiet. And I knew I wasn't alone. I felt all the air leave my lungs. I knew where he was, about 20 yards to my left, and that he was big and very big. I also knew not to look at him. I didn't have to. I could see him in my mind. I must have looked at him before without realizing it. I still can see him. Not so much of a clear picture, just his mass, kind of like. I am this big, you are tiny, so go away and don't come back. I said okay, and I didn't ever go back. I didn't smell anything or see anything, but I have had times when I reviewed an event in my head and realized I had seen things that didn't register when I was actually physically there. Kind of in the periphery. I don't know how to explain it, but it has happened. And it has always been something that was a little frightening, like a bear or a person where they shouldn't be. That was back in the late spring of 2000. I was raised in Alberta near Towfield. No way. I shot my first huge whitetail out of Towfield, my friend's parents' place, where they grew up. We were about 20 miles southwest of Elk Island National Park. Been there too. We were surrounded by woods, miles and miles of forest. I loved it and spent all my free time exploring them. One night around 2 a.m. I woke up suddenly. There was a horrible smell. I saw my older brother standing at the window. I asked him what stank so bad, and he said something killing the chickens. I said, why are you just standing there? Dad's gonna have her hides. He said, I saw it. Dad can have my hide. What is it? I asked. Why does it smell so bad, and where's the dog? He said they must be dead. There's no way they would let this go. They were blue heelers. Coyotes wouldn't even come near our house because they were scared of them. He wouldn't tell me what he saw, and we left it at that. The next morning we found that all the chickens were dead, and there were a few missing, but the rest were all crowded into one corner and they had died of fright. I thought it was a badger or wolverine. The dogs were okay, which was even stranger. They would never balk away from anything ever. So that means they were scared, and anything that scared them terrified me. There was a game reserve along our back fence. We found all sorts of weird things back there. We even found an elephant skeleton out there. We figured that it came from the game farm zoo that was not far from us. We also saw teepee structures all over the place. We didn't think much of it. I didn't know what they were until many years later. Our closest friends lived with their back fence along the game reserve also, and if we wanted to hang out with them, we cut through the reserve. It was faster than getting our mom and dad to drive us there, which they wouldn't do anyway. One day my brother said he needed to talk to me alone, which is a hard thing to do. I had 3 brothers and 4 sisters. He was a year older than I, so alone took planning. We snuck off into the woods. Interestingly, we were in one of those tree structures. There was a clear view of our house and the garden from it. He told me that last night he was over at his friend's place and he lost track of time. So he was walking through the game reserve after dark, which wasn't a big deal most of the time. That was home to us. We thought we were the scariest things out there. Anyway, he was moving fast. He said he came around a curve in the trail and ran right into this big guy in a fur coat. He asked him, "Who the hell are you and what are you doing back here?" Then he looked up at him. He said he was 7.5 to 8 feet tall. He was massive and had glowing red eyes. They just stood there looking at each other. Then the guy backed off the trail and backed into the woods and let him by. He backed around him face to face until they were out of sight of each other. Then he ran the rest of the way home. He said it was the chicken killer from a few years earlier. He told me that we couldn't let our sisters go into the wood alone anymore with this guy around. My mom sends them out for mushrooms and Saskatoon berries all the time, and she didn't believe the 8-foot man story. So one of us always went with them. I didn't know what we would have done. All we had was a single-shot .22, kind of like shooting paper wads through a straw at him. But we never saw him again. Then one winter day, all us kids were tobogganing on one of our hills, having a great time. I could hear my dad yelling from the house. So I looked over at the house to see my dad was yelling what he was yelling about. I saw him on the front porch with his hunting rifle aiming at the top of the hill. He never shot at anything because we were in the way. He said there were wolves watching us. I looked at my brother and he shook his head. No, my dad saw us and told us to never tell anyone ever. He sold the place that spring. I've told a few friends. They laughed at me and said I was crazy. It must have been a bear. They may be right. I took a .22 to defend my sisters from an 8-foot Sasquatch. A few years ago, I ran into an RCMP officer that owned the property. I asked him if he had seen anything out there, and he said he hadn't, but he didn't laugh at me or think I was crazy. The place is overrun now with people, become the acreage capital of the world. Again, thank you, Steve, for this opportunity to tell this without being laughed at. Also, I've been following Sarah's cooking show. It's amazing, and I'm the cook in the family. My wife is an RN, so I'm the cook in the family. It's cook or starve, so I'll be trying some Sarah's recipes. P.S. My wife thinks I'm crazy also, but that's why she married me. Sometimes life is just good, don't you think? Be safe, Steve. I hope the spelling, punctuation, and grammar wasn't too bad, David R. David, it was frickin' awesome, man. And it's funny that I was absolutely familiar with all those places you were talking about. I mean, not exact patch of forest, but I'm familiar exactly where you were. Tollfield Riley, right? East of Edmonton. Anyway, it's getting dark. I gotta go. I'll be sharing more news with everybody as soon as I can. News of plans. If you can, support the truck drivers that are in mass, traveling in mass numbers across the country to go stand up for the people and put the politicians back in their place. It is so beautiful. That is so frickin' beautiful. And what else? The audio version of every single video on YouTube currently will be available on the podcast platforms. Any podcast platform, search The Facts by How to Hunt, and you will find the audio version, okay, you guys? So if or when I get the boot from YouTube again, which I will, that's where you're going to find everything, and it's not going to stop, ever. All right? And I may have another place that I'm going to put this up on shortly, and you'll definitely be hearing about that as soon as I know the details and make the decision. Be safe and keep emailing in the truth.